The sun baked the cracked concrete of Carter and Company. Auto repair, its rays dancing on the metallic shells of half-repaired trucks and oil drums stacked like forgotten soldiers. It was one of those Texas afternoons where the air hung thick with heat and the sweet, bitter scent of gasoline. Inside the garage, a small figure moved with precision and purpose, her every step leaving behind tiny grease prints on the floor. 8-year-old Maddie Carter, clad in denim overalls smeared with oil and soot, was elbow-deep in the guts of a beat-up '87 Chevy. Most kids her age were inside playing video games or coloring, but Maddie was tightening a carburetor bolt with the focus of a surgeon. Her ponytail, secured with a worn-out red band, swayed each time she leaned over the hood, her little hands dancing between wires and bolts like she'd been born in that engine bay. Her father, Hank Carter, looked on from the workbench with a half-smile, his massive frame dwarfed by the open garage bay, but made gentle by his eyes. Hank was a man molded by steel and soot, a lifelong mechanic, widower, and father who'd poured every ounce of his soul into this garage after his wife passed. When she died, Maddie was just 3, and the shop became more than a livelihood. It became a classroom, a sanctuary, and a home. From the moment she could walk, Maddie had followed him around like a shadow, mimicking his movements, memorizing the way he spoke to engines like they were old friends. "Engines talk if you listen," he'd say, placing her tiny hand on a humming hood. "They always tell you what they need." That Friday afternoon started out like any other until the growl of an engine, loud but wounded, rolled into the lot. Hank looked up from his ledger just in time to see a blacked-out Ford Raptor coast in, coughing and rattling like it was on its last leg. The truck looked like it had been through a war zone, because it had. The driver's door opened with a firm creak, and out stepped a tall, rigid man with close-cropped hair, dark sunglasses, and the kind of posture that screamed military. His boots hit the pavement like punctuation marks. Every step was measured, controlled, dangerous. Maddie peeked from behind the Chevy's hood and narrowed her eyes. Something about the man made her spine straighten. He wasn't just another customer looking to get his truck patched up. This man had seen things, been places. His presence was silent, but loud enough to hush the buzzing cicadas outside. He walked straight up to Hank, extended a firm hand, and said in a gravelly voice, "Name's Cole Maddox, Navy SEAL. I need this engine fixed. Fast." Hank sized him up, recognizing the urgency immediately. "All right, let's have a look," he said, popping the hood. One glance at the engine, and Hank let out a low whistle. "Timing's off. Looks like your tensioner's cracked. Maybe more. Gonna take a while." Cole checked his watch and clenched his jaw. "I've got 3 hours. Can't miss this flight." Hank frowned, scratching the back of his neck. 3 hours ain't much, brother. Might have to check with the boys down at Watson's garage, or maybe I can try, came a quiet but firm voice from the shadows. Both men turned. Standing there, no taller than the workbench, was Maddie, her face streaked with sweat and grease, her wrench belt hanging almost at her knees. She stepped forward like she belonged there, like she was the shop. There was no doubt in her tone. Just truth. Just readiness. Hank raised an eyebrow, half amused, half concerned. Maddie, but she didn't break stride. She walked right up to the towering SEAL, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, "You said fast. I'm your best shot." Cole blinked, then let out a dry chuckle. "You're kidding." "She's not," Hank said, folding his arms. "She's been turning bolts since before kindergarten. And she's got a feel for engines I've never seen. Not even in grown men." Cole studied Maddie for a moment, then stepped aside with arms crossed. "All right then, show me what you've got." Maddie didn't hesitate. She tossed off her gloves, rolled up her sleeves, and popped the hood higher. She moved like a whisper, focused, fluid, fearless. She pulled the distributor cap, checked the crankshaft position sensor, and manually rotated the crank pulley to line up the timing marks. Then, like a miniature engineer, she dug into her toolkit and began replacing the faulty timing belt and tensioner, not with parts made for the Raptor, but with an improvised fit from a '92 Mustang they'd salvaged months ago. She knew every bolt, every groove, every beat of that machine like it was a song she'd learned in the womb. 30 minutes later, she slammed the hood down and gave it a pat. "Start it," she said simply. Cole slid into the seat, turned the key, and the engine roared to life. Not just running, purring, smooth, clean, and full of power. Like new. Cole stepped out slowly, the disbelief clear in his eyes. "What the hell? You had a busted tensioner, and the cam gear was slipping a tooth," Maddie explained like she was reading a children's book. "I corrected the timing manually, replaced the tensioner with a matching fit, and tightened the belt within a quarter-inch tolerance. She'll hold." Hank laughed loudly. "I keep telling her she's going to put me out of business." Cole knelt down, looking at Maddie with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "Who taught you that?" "My dad. And engines," she replied. "They taught to me." He nodded slowly. "You ever want to do this for real?" Maddie shrugged. "This is real." He grinned just a little. "You just saved a mission I can't talk about. That's not nothing." Maddie reached for her wrench. "Just tell your friends we're open 7 days." Cole laughed again, a low, genuine sound this time. It was the kind of laugh that hadn't escaped his throat in a long while. He stood, pulled a crisp $100 bill from his wallet, and placed it on the counter. "Keep the change." He shook Hank's hand, gave Maddie a quiet nod, and walked out to the Raptor. Before he got in, he paused, turned, and said, "You'll hear from me soon." Then he drove away, leaving only the hum of a perfectly tuned engine and the lingering feeling that something big had just happened. Neither Maddie nor Hank fully understood it in that moment. But in a dusty little shop on the edge of nowhere, a girl with grease-stained hands had just opened a door to a future far greater than either of them could imagine. The morning was still and quiet, with only the chirping of distant birds and the familiar creak of the garage's sliding door breaking the silence. It had been 2 weeks since the day Maddie Carter, the grease-stained, ponytailed 8-year-old marvel, fixed the engine of a Navy SEAL's truck with a precision that baffled even her own father. Life had returned to its regular rhythm at Carter and Company. Auto repair, but something felt different. Maddie had resumed her usual duties, tuning engines, reassembling dirt bikes, and occasionally surprising new customers who underestimated her. Yet a lingering feeling tugged at the air, like a song waiting to be finished. That feeling found form when the crunch of heavy-duty tires echoed down their gravel driveway. Hank stepped outside, squinting into the morning sun as a dark, matte-finished military SUV pulled up to the shop. It was clearly government issue, armored, spotless, with a presidential seal glinting subtly on the license plate. Hank's heart skipped. Maddie looked up from the bench, where she was piecing together a 2-stroke engine. Her hands froze, still holding a socket wrench. The SUV door swung open, and out stepped Cole Maddox. But this time, he wasn't the dusty, tired man who had walked into their garage weeks ago. Today, he was immaculate, dressed in full navy dress blues, every metal on his chest perfectly aligned, his posture even more rigid than before. He looked like a man sent to deliver news, and news that mattered. "Mornin'," Cole said, his voice steady. Hank set his rag down and walked forward, offering a firm handshake. "Didn't expect to see you back this soon." Cole gave a tight nod, then reached into his chest pocket and pulled out a sleek black folder embossed with gold, a golden eagle, at its center. "This isn't a repaired job," he said. "It's an invitation." Hank took the folder, glancing at the seal before opening it. Inside was a single letter, neatly printed on official Department of Defense letterhead. His brows furrowed as he read, then slowly lifted in disbelief. "Madison Carter is hereby invited to attend the United States Youth Engineering Initiative, a government-sponsored mentorship program for exceptional mechanical minds. Full scholarship, sponsored by the Special Forces Technical Division. Endorsed by the Secretary of Defense." Hank looked up, mouth slightly open. "You're not serious." "I made some calls," Cole said. "Told them about your daughter. They didn't believe me, not until I showed them the video." "What video?" Hank asked, confused. Cole offered a half smile. "Operational habit. I always document repair stops during classified movement. It's standard. I had body cam footage front-facing and full angle, of Maddie diagnosing and fixing the Raptor. I sent it to the division's engineering leads. Within 48 hours, I got a call from DC asking for a file. I mean, she's 8, Hank muttered, still stunned. Exactly, Cole replied. And she fixed a precision-timed engine failure in 30 minutes using parts from an unrelated model without access to a digital readout or torque reference chart. That's not normal, Hank. That's genius. By now, Maddie had stepped forward, her expression a mix of curiosity and awe. Wait, I'm going to school? Cole knelt again, as he had the first day they met. Only this time his voice softened with reverence. Not just any school, Maddie. A private facility in Maryland. It's part military, part tech institute. You'll have access to labs, instructors who help design fighter jets, and classmates who are already solving college-level equations. You'll be the youngest one there, by a mile, but from what I've seen, you'll lead the pack. Maddie looked at her dad. What about you? I don't want to leave. Cole turned to Hank. The offer includes full relocation, housing, salary for a base mechanic position, your own garage on site. They want Maddie, but they also want to keep her comfortable. You're both invited. The world seemed to go still. Hank, a man who had spent his life covered in grit and pain, who had raised a daughter alone in a garage built more on love than brick, suddenly saw the next chapter unfolding. His eyes welled, but he kept his voice even. This is her road now. A month later, the Carter family boarded a government-chartered flight to Maryland. The entire journey felt surreal. Gone were the rattling tools and hot concrete floors of their small-town shop. In their place came sterile white labs, 3D printers, robotic arms, and AI diagnostic systems. Maddie's first week at the United States Youth Engineering Initiative was overwhelming, not because it was hard, but because she saw so much potential to create. She wasn't intimidated by the teenagers who looked at her like a child. She was fascinated by what they hadn't figured out yet. By age 9, she was correcting senior designs on compact drone engines and proposing more efficient piston models for amphibious recon crafts. She didn't memorize engineering, she felt it. Teachers, military engineers, and visiting scientists soon began requesting her insights. But despite the rapid fame inside the halls, Maddie remained herself, grounded, quiet, and humble. Every interview she gave, every presentation she made, she always began the same way. Engines talk. You just gotta listen. Back home, Hank adjusted. He missed the long, hot afternoons, but he found comfort in his new role as base mechanic. And he loved seeing Maddie shine. Every night after classes and lab time, she'd come home smelling faintly of metal and coolant, and they'd talk engines over dinner like nothing had changed. Then, on her 12th birthday, just as the autumn leaves began to fall over the Maryland base, Cole returned. He entered the small apartment quietly, holding a modest box wrapped in silver ribbon. Maddie jumped up from the couch when she saw him. I didn't forget, he said, handing her the box. Inside, nestled in dark velvet, was a polished silver plaque. It read, "To Madison Carter, the smallest hands that repaired a warrior's road." Maddie looked up, eyes wide. You didn't just fix an engine that day, kid. Cole said, his voice thick with emotion. You fixed me. You reminded me that brilliance doesn't always come in uniforms or labs. Sometimes it comes from a dusty garage in a girl with grease on her cheeks. Maddie hugged him tight, her head pressed against his chest. You believed in me when others wouldn't. He smiled, blinking fast. You made it easy. The photo of that hug went on to hang in the main hallway of the U.S. Youth Engineering Lab underneath. Engraved in brass were the words, "Greatness doesn't wait for permission. It just picks up a wrench and gets to work." And so the story of a mechanic's daughter became more than a tale told in garages. It became a legend, a symbol that genius has no age, no uniform, and no limits. Only a voice and someone willing to listen. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Expect Stories, where powerful tales meet life-changing moments. Leave a comment below and let us know, what would you have done if you were in Maddie's shoes? More true-hearted, jaw-dropping stories coming your way, only on Expect Stories.